everyone, my name is Exotic Gaming, and welcome to my official Pixel Gun 3D Halloween special. Halloween is tomorrow, and it's a time to celebrate the more morbid side of our lives. The ghosts, the unexplained mysteries, destruction, despair, and death. Today I will be celebrating Halloween with you all by telling you a Pixel Gun related scary story. A story about a 14-year-old girl named Samantha who played Pixel Gun 3D as well, just like us. Samantha vanished while playing in the map Slender Forest in Pixel Gun and hasn't been seen since. No one knows if this story is true or not. It has never been explained. I found this story in the depths of the deep web, which isn't always true, but, well, it's up for you to decide. Now before we begin, I would like to give a fair warning. You may get scared by this story, but it's okay if it scares you. Feel free to hide out in the comments section while listening to this video. Reality is very scary, and you have every right to be frightened about something that may have happened a lot closer to home than you think. Leave a like if you enjoy this story, and happy Halloween. Let's begin. The most creepy part of this story is the fact that it took place not very long ago. It happened 1 year ago tomorrow, as a matter of fact. We must begin our journey on October 31st, 2017, in the town of Stamford, Connecticut, in the United States. This is where Samantha lives, or lived, I should say. Samantha was 14 years old. She wasn't the most popular girl in her school. As a matter of fact, she was a very quiet girl, and she spent most of her time playing video games whenever she had the chance. 2017 was the year she decided to start playing Pixel Gun 3D. Her username was SamOfTheMoon. Strangely enough, I remember someone who used to comment on my older videos with that very username. Was it coincidence, or was it something more? Regardless, I never saw another comment from this girl after October 2017, and that was strange as she commented on nearly every single one of my videos for the longest time. I didn't think too much of her disappearance. I thought she was perhaps one of the many fans that comes and goes, but after reading this story I found on the deep web not too long ago, I was shocked. So, reverting back to 1 year ago now, we have to recognize that Samantha was a very superstitious girl. She believed everything from picking a penny up off the ground tails up to walking underneath a ladder brought bad luck, and while she never remembered experiencing anything related to bad luck personally, she still thought it was real. So, that fateful day, October 31st, 2017, which just so happened to be Halloween, was a day where she was very alert. She was on the lookout of anything that could potentially bring her bad luck. It was a Tuesday, and she went through the entire day at school perfectly fine. With this in mind, after her mother picked her up from school, she decided she would celebrate by playing some Pixel Gun 3D before she went out trick-or-treating later that night. Unfortunately, with her mind turned towards Pixel Gun, she lost concentration of avoiding bad luck, and perhaps it was fate. Maybe it was her destiny. Her mother was driving, looked away for a second as she came around a corner, and a black cat ran right in front of the car. Perhaps this was a neighbor's cat, because there was a collar on it with a heart. To her despair, before her mother could swerve out of the way, it was too late. The cat was no more. Samantha was petrified. She was of course devastated that the cat was killed, but she also realized the connection between black cats and superstition. It's bad luck if a cat crosses the road in front of you, so if you take it to the extreme of accidentally running the cat over and killing it, it must be 100 times worse. The family went home, had a brief burial ceremony for the cats, and afterwards Samantha decided to try and get rid of everything off of her mind by playing some Pixel Gun 3D. After all, this is what she decided to do after school anyways. So, Samantha logged in. She checked her armory and her player stats. Everything was as it's always been. That's a good sign. However, it must be noted Samantha was a glitch fanatic. She was actually kind of like me in a way. She always tried to find ways to glitch out of maps in the game, and she was one of the few people who knew about the secret helicopter in Slender Forest before I made a video on it a few months ago. As we know, that is a major glitch in the game. You can see things the developers never intended for you to see, but that's just the type of thing Samantha was searching for. So on this day, Halloween 2017, Samantha decided to journey into Slender Forest in one of the older versions of this game, and once again, try this out-of-the-map glitch that she had done so many times before. It was already getting late, about 7 p.m., and the sun had already set. Samantha successfully got out of the map and began exploring. However, at some point, she made a mistake that may have just cost her her life. While traveling through the very specific series of steps to get to the helicopter, Samantha took a wrong turn. She found herself in an area of Slender Forest that was very unfamiliar to her. She could have probably found her way back or disconnected and rejoined a different match, but unfortunately her curiosity is what led to her downfall. She decided to press on. She eventually saw what looked like a tunnel in the distance, and upon getting closer to it, she found out it was exactly that. Again, she could have turned around, but she decided to go forward. Now, I don't know if you remember in my Slender Forest glitch video, I talked about potential theories as to why there were big blank areas outside the map. I theorized these areas could have been potentially used as starting points for creating new maps. And well, this is what happened. Samantha kept traveling deeper and deeper into the tunnel. It got darker and darker. She was getting a little nervous. Eventually, out of nowhere, the floor changed in front of her, and it appeared that the tunnel in front of her changed into endless portals that we see in the map Area 52 labs. Now, despite it being late 2017, Samantha was playing on a very old version of Pixel Gun 3D from 2014, and Area 52 labs didn't exist at this point. Portals didn't exist in the game entirely. She was quite confused. Maybe it was a glitch? She didn't know. What she did do, though, might have just been one of the biggest mistakes of her life, for she decided to jump into one of those portals, and it took her to a place she never would have expected. When she left the portal, Samantha was in a very different version of Pixel Gun 3D. She was still in Slender Forest, but now, the graphics almost made it look like real life. In fact, the scary thing was, it looked like the forest outside of her neighborhood. It was all too familiar. She began moving her character, and when her character's head brushed a tree branch, she felt something on her arm in real life, and when she looked down, there was a big cut on her arm. She then realized whatever portal she traveled into had major superstition behind it, and that was enough for her to want to exit out of the game. She tried leaving the match, but couldn't. She then decided to try to turn her phone off, and it wouldn't let her. She then heard a faint, staticky voice that sounded like it was coming from very far away, and it said,
"You don't want to do that, Samantha. Play my game. It'll be fun."
Samantha was very scared at this point. She decided to leave her phone there and not touch it, but out of nowhere, the character started moving by itself on the screen. The character then took out the fire demon weapon and moved it very close to its face. In real life, Samantha never felt so much heat before. It was as if she was inches away from boiling lava, and it was hurting her. The voice again appeared, and it said,
"Samantha, I suggest you pick up my phone. If not, you will not like what happens."
Not knowing what else to do, Samantha took hold of the phone, put away the fire demon, and started to move her own character. She felt better, but in the distance, she saw a series of unusual items on the ground. She walked forward, following weird glowing arrows on the ground, and eventually came to a sign that said, "Start." She stopped. Ahead of her looked like a death maze. There were bear traps, nails, burning coal, poisonous spiders, and some of the largest venomous snakes she had ever seen. The voice appeared again, and it said,
"You must play to survive."
Of course, Samantha didn't really have a choice. She decided to begin going through the maze. She tried her best to avoid as many traps as she could, but every time she stepped on a nail, every time her hands touched fire, and every time a spider bit her in the game, she felt it in real life. She was in more pain than ever before. She didn't know if she could handle much more of this, but her survival instinct kicked in. She thought, I must complete this. I am not dying today. Unfortunately, towards the very end, Samantha came to a dead end. It appeared she took a wrong turn somewhere earlier, and a few spiders dropped from the ceiling on top of her. One bite from this unknown species was enough to kill you. And of course, she had the misfortune of being bitten dozens of times before she killed all of them. This type of spider was unique in that it slowly turned your inner organs into mush, and you died from the inside out. Samantha desperately tried to make her way out, but in real life, her vision became blurry. She was losing consciousness. And then, she passed out. What felt like an eternity later, Samantha awoke, and she realized she was not in her room anymore. She was in the forest outside of her neighborhood. She then felt a firm hand on her shoulder, and she became frozen with fear. She glanced to her right and saw on her shoulder the longest, thinnest black hand she had ever seen before. She quickly spun around, and staring blankly into her eyes, with absolutely no face, was Slender Man himself. She was about to scream, but Slender Man covered her mouth before she could say anything. He then said, in that same staticky voice she heard before,
Samantha, I am disappointed in you. You did not complete my game. Since it is Halloween, and you should be trick-or-treating with your friends, you will forever repay for your failure.
And without a moment's notice, he grabbed Samantha, pulled her close so she was inches from his face, and he said one thing.
You're coming with me now.
Before she could try to escape, he then explained to her that she was in a secret part of the forest outside of her neighborhood. It was inaccessible to anyone from the outside, and no one would hear her pleas for help. Anytime she tried to escape, she would be thrown back into that maze of death, and it would get increasingly more difficult, time after time. She would be forced to stay in this secluded area of the forest that never turned to daylight, and she would never be allowed to leave, ever again. The only thing that would accompany her in this forest would be a small black cat with a collar on it that was shaped like a heart. Later that day, her mother came to her room shocked to see blood on the floor and her daughter missing. The phone was still on the floor, screen still on, and when her mother bent down to look at the screen, a message appeared. All it said was thank you for playing my game. Perhaps if Samantha's mother thought more of this, they would have been able to track down her daughter. But her mother thought it was just a message from a friend, and that was it. She left the phone in her daughter's room, and for months afterwards, the entire neighborhood searched endlessly to try to find her daughter. Months passed, and people gave up hope. Fewer and fewer searched for long-lost Samantha, and eventually, her parents gave up. The local authorities pronounced her dead, and the family held a funeral for her. But we know a different tale. Legend still says, if you travel outside the map Slender Forest in Pixel Gun 3D, you may just take that same wrong turn Samantha did exactly 1 year ago, and you may just stumble upon that tunnel that takes you to the real Slender Forest. Now, many would say it's not worth trying to find her, as the chances are so slim and the risk of death is high, but others would disagree. There have been a few people who have worked diligently to try and find that tunnel in Slender Forest. They, unlike her parents and the entire town, have not given up hope. There is still a chance that Samantha is still out there. It's only a matter of time before we find her. Regardless, the lesson learned here is, don't go into Slender Forest this Halloween, where you might end up with a misfortunate series of events, just like our fellow Pixel Gun 3D player, SamOfTheMoon.